Students, let us discuss some of the topics of current affairs as on April 7, 2021. Peaceful polling has been reported in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Puducherry, Assam and Bengal. In the recently held assembly elections, polling in Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry assembly elections is complete, whereas the third phase of the Assam and West Bengal elections went off peacefully. And the voting turnout ranged from 71 to 79%. We can see Kerala and Tamil Nadu and somewhere here Puducherry and West Bengal and Assam are undergoing elections. From Washington, IMF projects 12.5% GDP growth for India. IMF projected an impressive 12.5% gross domestic product growth in India for the year 2021. IMF is the International Monetary Fund. China is the only major economy to have a positive growth rate of 2.3% last year, even in the COVID pandemic. And whereas China is expected to grow at 8.6%, India is projected to grow at 12.5%. Indian economy is expected to grow by 6.9% next year 2022, while China will be growing at 5.6% in 2022. One thing is to be noted is that in 2020 India's economy rather contracted by a record 8%, minus 8% GDP growth has been reported for the 2020 due to COVID pandemic. Justice N.V. Ramana appointed next Chief Justice of India. President Ramnath Kovind has appointed Justice N.V. Ramana as the next Chief Justice of India. He will be the 48th Chief Justice of India and will take the oath on April 24 and will have roughly a tenure of 16 months. India and Russia discuss defense production. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who is visiting India and while in a meeting with his counterpart S. Jaishankar, has said, far from being dissuaded from the US threat to impose sanctions, New Delhi and Moscow discussed the additional production of Russian military equipment under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Make in India initiative. So hope that more defense equipment will be made in India in collaboration with the Russia. From the Vienna, it is observed that US-Iran begin indirect talks to revive nuclear deal. European intermediaries began shuttling between Iranian and US officials in Vienna as they sought to bring both countries back into full compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal that Washington abandoned 3 years ago. From Wellington, New Zealand to open travel bubble with Australia on April 19. Both New Zealand and Australia has successfully stamped out COVID-19 virus by imposing strict restrictions. Now both the countries are going to allow their citizens to travel between the two countries, and they say it is travel bubble without any COVID restrictions. Netanyahu gets official nod to form government. On March 23, elections in Israel took place, and the news from Jerusalem is that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu got a new lease on his political life, receiving a mandate from Israel's President Reuven Rivlin to form a new government. As the mandate of the elections is not clear so the Netanyahu has to do some homework to prove his majority in forming the government. Split roles of chairperson, managing director, and chief executive officer. SEBI to listed companies. SEBI is Securities and Exchange Board of India. It regulates the capital markets. Capital markets regulator SEBI asked the listed companies to work towards splitting roles of chairman and managing director before the April 2022 deadline. The SEBI chairman Ajay Tyagi said the idea for such a separation is not to weaken the position of promoters but to improve corporate governance. Government is SEBI is asking that there should be a clear definition or defining of the role of chairman of board of directors and the managing director. Separation of the roles will reduce excessive concentration of authority in a single individual. Having the same person as a chairman and MD brings in conflict of interest. The norm in many of the companies these days is they merge the two positions, chairman and managing director, and make a common post CMD, which is chairman cum managing director, which leads to a rise in the conflict of interest and concentration of power in the hands of a single individual, which is not required. Adani, third Indian group to cross $100 billion in market capitalization. Billionaire Gautam Adani's ports to energy conglomerate has become India's third group to cross 100 billion in market capitalization after Tata's and Reliance. So Adani is now the third biggest corporate in India. India getting job done on climate, USNY says. The United States Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry lauded India for getting the job done on climate. He has appreciated India's efforts in improving the climate and said it is a world leader already in deployment of renewable energy. Kerry is on a 4-day visit to Three Nation tour ahead of US President Joe Biden's virtual summit on climate to be held with 40 world leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on April 22 and 23 this month. Thanks, my dear students.